that's, if you go look at like all the polling across the board, by far the majority of people are still more so on the side with Israel. By far the majority of the people, yes.
That's 100. No.
Yes.
No. Hold on.
Trying to get our cameras aligned, and yours is way more zoomed in than mine. So you can't look bigger than.
That's fair.
That's emasculating me, so I gotta have both of them about the same time.
Well, as we both know, logic is not nearly as important as vibes, and that would send a bad vibe.
It would send a bad vibe, yeah. I don't think we both know that, but close enough. All right. Well, so yeah, I messaged you because I watched you talk to Pisco, and was a little annoyed with the conversation and some aspects of it.
Dude,
so I
me
wanted
too,
to.
I'm glad you agree with me on everything.
I wanted to just call and talk to you about how right you were the entire time. Yeah, so the first thing that I wanted to get into is, I guess, the part of the disagreement was over whether or not you even use the word, or whether or not it has any utility if a bunch of people misunderstand what the word is. And you were saying that if everybody understands the word to just kind of mean this person's bad, or it's kind of lost all meaning in like it to communicate any sort of real concept, then it's just kind of pointless in using the word anymore. Is that correct?
No, I wouldn't say it's pointless. I would say that's just how the word is used. I was talking to Tony from One Dime Radio. I don't know if you know who that is, but I asked him, like, why isn't it okay to just have a term that just means bad? That's what I do with the word degenerate. So, if people call Charlie Kirk or whoever fascist, and they just mean like political enemy, you could make it, that's a very practical and pragmatic way to use the term.
Sure.
But I guess I was just pointing out that is how people use it.
I disagree that that's how people use it, or that's what people actually think it means. I think that there's different usages of it, and I do think that there's like kind of just a common sense where people use it to mean authoritarian, and that's just like a general use of the term. And so when people say like Antifa is fascist because they tried shutting down people's freedom of speech, like them shutting down people's freedom of speech is not encapsulating all of the different aspects of fascism, but they are doing something authoritarian in a sense, kind of. They're not an authority in that situation, so it's not really authoritarian, but that's what they mean. It's like authoritarian. Whereas there's still, especially if we're like in this space, we're discussing like political concepts and philosophy and things like that. We're having more of like an academic conversation. We're using more like academic terminology. And I think that when people who engage in politics, people who talk about this stuff, especially if it's Daily Wire or TYT or CNN, Fox News, like they're using a more like political philosophy sort of terminology when they use it, and that it's going to be a lot more complicated than just authoritarianism.
Yes, I agree that, yes, there are people that use it in the more intellectual way. Yes, I agree with that.
So why? Well, I guess before we get to like what it like, yeah, the word itself, do you not think that you would have some sort of responsibility to your like audience to like at least educate them on what the word is and what it is that like people mean in an academic sense? Or do you think it's best to just kind of appeal to whatever misconception they have?
It's definitely not a loaded question. Do
Mhm.
you have a responsibility to educate your audience, or should you appeal to their misconceptions?
Well, you're because
The
it's that you
utility.
don't. Not everybody has a responsibility to educate them, right? Lots of people they're doing politics. Lots of people are just doing politics. They're just trying to sway
Sure.
people in one direction or the other. Other people are thinking, well, I want people to like have a broader understanding, regardless of what my politics are.
I guess I don't know. It all depends on what it all depends on what words can be defined in any way you it depends on what my goal is. So, like for example, like the example I always go to is liberal. Like I will literally use the same word in the exact opposite way to two different audiences. Like if I'm talking to right wingers, liberal means left wing compared to them. And if I'm talking to left wingers, liberal means right wing compared to them. So the exact same word means the exact same opposite thing to two different people. So it's like with fashion, it's like so like if you're asking me, Paul, don't you have a responsibility to define liberal? It's like no, I have a responsibility to communicate what I'm trying to communicate as best as I can. And I actually don't think that, like if I know my audience is all right wingers, and I say, and someone says like, liberals, they're for transgenders and gays and all that. It's like okay, I know how they're using that term, so we're in the linguistic framework, so I'll use it in that way. Um, I don't know. Do I have a? I guess one of the reasons I brought Tony on was to talk about Governor Greg Abbott just texted me. He just made a special announcement, and he wants to make sure my top supporters like me see it. Well, um,
I just got a couple texts from Donald Trump just a little while ago as well. So.
there you go.
Mhm.
Nice. Um, so what was the question? Do I have a responsibility to educate them on it? It's
Yeah, do
like,
you think it's like to get them to understand like different concept or different context? Like if you use liberal in different ways in different places. If I go and talk
yeah.
to a Marxist, yes, when they call somebody a liberal, they mean something a little bit different than what a conservative means when they call somebody a liberal. And so, yeah, is it?
Yeah, I guess I know sort of. I mean, when I was talking to Pisco, I was like, "This is my point." It's like I know there's like the Giovanni Gentile definition, which is one type of fascism, which is very different from like the Nazi biological racism fascism. Then there's like Franco-fascism. There's Christo-fascism. There's Trump. So my point was just like for example, I would never say, it's I guess I don't know. It's just it depends. The question all I was doing was I was asking Pisco if he would agree with the statement. Was Charlie? Do you think Charlie Kirk is a fascist? Which is just it's an interesting question. I didn't care. I wasn't there to argue. I mean, my problem, Tom, is that I buy into people's frames too easily.
Mm.
I'm too agreeable. So I could have just said, "All right, well, that's fine." I mean, it was interesting to see how he thinks, but yeah, I guess let me ask you this: what do you think I should do differently when just I mean maybe in just in the broadest sense, like generally,
Well,
which
I
would
mean,
include like using fascism stuff. Do you think I should like pick a definition and stick to it?
no, but I do think like the word fascist like has a lot of power and a lot of weight with it. It has negative
Yeah.
connotations, obviously, because of World War II and what everybody did there, but mostly because fascism was created to be an alternative to liberalism. It was supposed to be the
Mhm.
thing that like kind of stops liberalism and has like the more permanent replacement for it. And so when people say, oh, this is fascism, the fear is like, oh, this is anti Constitution. This is anti American values. This is something that is supposed to stop what it is that America
Sure,
is
sure.
built on, our foundational values. And so I think that
Yes.
while I don't care if people use the term fascist, I do think that there is a coordinated effort to water down the term fascist, and that people really want to
By
make
who? By the
sure
left or the right?
by the right, and that they will
Oh,
say
interesting.
things like nobody knows what he means anymore. People call everybody a fascist these days. Like, and I don't agree with that. I don't think
That's
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 true.
well, that's well, I'd say that's 100,000% true.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't think so. I don't.
I just see, you know, people calling, Republicans are fascists. Like the Republican Party is a fascist party. Um, Charlie Kirk, people called Charlie Kirk a fascist. It's just like, wait, hold on. Next question. Do you think Charlie Kirk's a fascist
Yeah,
or was a fascist?
yeah. Yeah, but for similar reasons to what Pisco said, it's not that I think initially he was more of like a neoconic sort of Republican, which is what I was at the time, and I was a big fan of him.
Yeah.
But it was Donald Trump and his like sort of movement that turned me against the Republican Party, and it was the more
Okay.
fascistic sort of
Is
ideals
is
that I was against.
is Ben Shapiro a fascist?
No, but
Why not?
well, because so I would say that he does like water down fascism. He does a lot to kind of whitewash it, but I don't think that he has like more fascistic ideals, whereas Charlie Kirk's ideals did change over time. He like
Like
drastically
like what
changed.
is something that Charlie Kirk believed that Ben Shapiro does not also believe that makes
Uh
Charlie Kirk a fascist, but Ben not a fascist?
so Charlie Kirk was against gay marriage being legal, and he used to be in favor of it being legal. Ben Shapiro has a more libertarian view where he just doesn't believe the government should have any say on marriage whatsoever. So
Okay,
that's
that's
one
one.
example, but that is something that Charlie Kirk changed on, and the Groypers are correct when they say that they are the ones who pushed him in that direction. Like they kind of like hammered him a million times, saying that he wasn't
Really? Wait,
really
hold on. Charlie
Christian.
Kirk had the opinion that it should be, because I know the libertarian approach is that we should stay out of marriage,
Mhm.
and I do think that yeah, I think you're right. Ben has that position. Charlie didn't have that same position. He had
Not at
the
the
it should be illegal.
beginning. Yeah, so when they first started,
At the time
he thought
of
it was
his death,
wrong. Yes, at the time of his death, he thought that it should be that they should not be allowed to get married
legally.
legally, yeah.
Okay, so that's one. So if you're against gay marriage, that's the thing that can put you over the edge to become a fascist. What
No.
other?
Well, no, I mean, obviously, there's not gonna be any
Because
one
Ben Shapiro
thing.
ran cover for January 6th and supported Trump, and Trump is a fascist. You would agree,
Did he? I thought that he
right?
was. I thought that he talked about. I thought he said January 6th was like an embarrassing moment for the country. That like Donald
Yeah,
Trump
and then he
is.
continued to get behind him.
Oh,
That a
maybe.
lot of people
Okay.
criticized Hitler, and then ended up in his, you know, in his core. Um, so how is Ben Shapiro not active? Ben Shapiro, the head of the largest conservative media organization in the United States, arguably, but around there, popular media, advocating for Donald Trump, who is, by I would assume your definition, a very obvious fascist. How does that not make Ben Shapiro a very clear fascist?
He might be. I haven't paid much attention to Ben Shapiro when it comes to like his support for Donald Trump, so I don't know as much about it. But I probably would say
Sure.
that yeah, actually, like the larger media like creators that their support for Trump does probably put them in that group. But I wouldn't necessarily even call like MAGA a fascist movement. Like, I wouldn't say that they
Okay.
are fascist because I
But
think a lot of them do believe that a lot of their goals are to achieve, like, constitutional rights and to make these, more secure
sure.
instead of less. But I think that also a lot of them don't care one way or the other. Like, I think that if Donald Trump, like, says, like, we're
Yeah, I've
getting
seen
rid
that.
of the
It's not
Constitution.
just yeah, it's not just if you support Trump, you're a fascist. But
Mhm.
if you do it like if you're an intelligent person and you're a big, like a Ben Shapiro or a Charlie Kirk, whoever, and you know what you're doing, that makes you fascist.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. But this is my point: is if Ben Shapiro is a fascist, effectively, it kind of means like, what does it even like? Because here's I'm trying to make this point with Pisco.
Well, I just think Ben Shapiro's
Hitler's a
like
fascist, right?
Ben
Hey,
Shapiro
hold
says,
on. Hitler's a fascist, right?
okay, sure, yeah.
So if we're going to use the same word to describe Hitler as Ben Shapiro, it stretches the utility of the word, seemingly, to the point where it's like, well, what does it even mean anymore? Like, that's the point that I think people make quite fairly. Is like, well, if we're going to use if the word you are using can apply to Hitler, and not like he liked dogs and so does everyone else. It's like, no, fascist is a pretty specific political term, and the overwhelming majority of people who even know what that word means probably associate it with Hitler amongst anyone else. I mean, I don't know who else. Not that many people can find fucking Italy on a map, let alone know who Mussolini is. But everyone knows who Hitler is. So if we're like, so when you say, well, the right is watering down the word fascism by saying, well, what does it even mean? It's being used so broadly. It's like, or they're just saying the truth, which is that the left is using it so broadly that they're the ones watering it down.
I mean, that's again, I'm not like if that was actually the case, I would agree, but I just think that the
Yeah,
majority
fair
of
enough.
people
That
are
is
not
my
calling everybody
perception. Fair
fascist.
enough. I don't know how we would test whose worldview is correct.
Well,
My
I can think
perception
of
is that
like
that's how it's being
I can think
used.
of the majority of people that I know in media are not calling everybody fascist. Like the people on
Okay,
TYT
fair.
aren't constantly calling people fascist, even the majority
Interesting. That's
report,
fair.
even like, the left wing like leaders of the groups. But if I go look at random, small TikTok creators, they're calling everybody fascist. Like all of them will
Okay,
call
see,
everybody
this is
fascist. They'll call me a
yeah, this
fascist.
is a good. That's fair. That's fair. They definitely won't call me a fascist. They will. This is a good thing we can discuss because this is something that people always bitch about. Is like, Paul, you're just citing random TikTok creators. First off, when I think of normal people or most people, I don't mean most people in media. I mean the average people. Like I legit. Have you seen my the mimetic feudal hierarchies of online politics video by any chance?
I don't know.
It's the
I
one
don't
where
think
it's
so.
like basically, feudalism.
Yeah.
Peasants serve knights, knights serve barons, barons serve lords. Imagine that, except that it's just it's like cultural influence. Like Tucker Carlson is like at the top of the conservative media hierarchy or
Yeah.
conservative cultural hierarchy, and then below that is like some pretty B tier journalist, and then below that is like a channel like our size, and then below that is just like your average person who doesn't have any following, or has like 10 followers on Twitter, something like that. When I think of most people, I think of like the most politically engaged person in a friend group of 10 who basically
PF
influences
Jung is
everyone else's
gay.
opinions on the
I bet you
subject.
can't tell what I mean by that. Vex
Like
Ciceres
I don't know
used
what
in
your
different
experience has
ways.
been in different like friend groups or different groups of people, social groups. There's usually, and sometimes there's groups that are just all cohesive because they're all centered around the same interest. But groups that are not centered around interests, whether it's just like friends from high school, from college, from work, or whatever, might be like 10 people, and like one or two of them or three of them are the most politically engaged, and then they'll kind of set the tone for the rest of that group. Or at least people will like unconsciously be influenced by, oh well, my friend who
Hmm.
knows politics told me this thing or whatever.
Just like any girlfriend in a
And so,
relationship.
just like any girl. Oh,
They all change to their
um,
boyfriend's politics. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's fair. Yes. Okay. Sure. I am anti-hate speech, and so I reject that and condemn that. But that's okay.
Of course, as
Um,
you should.
I will say that that is what most people matters to me. Is like, well, the average person on TikTok, it's like that is what is influencing most people. It's like most people are influenced by the beliefs of the people around them and the people who are being shoved in their face 24 hours a day. Um, More so than journalists. So it's it's relevant, but like
Maybe to an
just
extent,
this
because a
idea
lot of
that
those people on TikTok are not necessarily getting a lot of views because they have a popular opinion. A lot of it could just be like rage bait, where they say something ridiculous and then everybody comments and shares because of how pissed off they
yeah,
are, and
sure.
they end up getting a lot of the the thing. I mean, I've gotten into the TikTok space over the last year and had a lot of fights with people on the left who all say that I'm a Nazi. Like literally, that's what they call me. Anytime I pop up anywhere, they all say, "Oh, there's the Nazi." And yes, they use
Our
these
haircuts are
terms.
not doing ourselves any favors when it comes to that.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
but yes, they are. I agree that that is like uh, that there is a specific type of like subculture that exists over there that does this sort of thing. But I think that when we look at leaders in like Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens or Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, like Sam Cedar, that these are people who have followings that like kind of align with them pretty strictly. That they like Destiny's audience is going to be very aligned with him and his views, and so
Correct. Yes.
we can kind of look at these people as like um to kind of see where it is that the culture is and what it is that people believe. And I think that the majority of those people are going to be a lot more careful on who it is that they do or don't call fascist, and that none of them would call me or you fascist, but a lot of them might call Donald Trump a fascist.
Sure. Yes. I think you're correct. I think we're both correct. I don't see how I guess I don't know
It's that
where do we disagree?
I think the TikTok people are I think that they are an anomaly. Like, even when we look at what happened after Charlie Kirk died and everybody's making fun of Charlie
Yeah.
Kirk's death all over TikTok, that was like very specific to TikTok. because then when it goes to like
See,
all of the Democrat
see,
leaders, they're all condemning the shooting, they're all condemning the death, they're all condemning the violence, and that's like the majority of big content creators as well on the left, and so it was just very different from them to
well,
everybody else.
yeah, I don't know if Destiny outright condemned violence. I think isn't his channel demonetized right now?
It is. He did. He
That's fine.
also
Yeah, that's
didn't.
fine. I'm
But
not.
he did and he didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more interesting point is I actually do think social media is much more reflective of reality in terms of like the collective um, cultural attitudes at any given time. First off, everyone's on social. This idea that like this terminally online thing, it's like everyone I know is on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Almost everyone I know. Political, they don't whether they care about politics or not. So, and if they watch Barstool Sports, politics is gonna seep into that. If they watch, whatever ESPN, politics. So, all of this stuff filters through everybody or bleeds in everybody. I know, two people. One's a teacher who basically, in real life, who basically has the same opinion that the people on TikTok celebrating Charles Kirk death had. And I think it's far more reflective of what people think than like, oh, it's just this one thing. There's a reason that Netanyahu is so adamant that Israel or pro-Israel groups acquire and control TikTok. Right? Because it's a very useful propaganda tool that influences the minds of many people. One could
Sure.
At least Netanyahu believes, and the Israelis believe, many of them, that one of the big reasons that Gen Z has turned against Israel is because of TikTok, almost single-handedly. So the idea that that isn't an important thing that at least shows where people's minds are, influences them, or shows where people's attitudes are at, is just like people comment this like you care about these TikTok. It's just like you are. How are you so blind to the influence that the phones have, especially on younger people, and all of us boomers too, they have even a weaker immune system to it. So
I don't want to sound like I don't
get
think that they have any sort of influence at all, but I also realize that like people on TikTok have a really hard time becoming mainstream figures. Like even people who are blowing up in the politics space, like Dean and Parker, are not like well known as somebody like Destiny or Vosh or
I think there's that.
Hassan or any of these
Well,
people, because they really have a hard time breaking that sort of genre that is TikTok, which is very
maybe
unattractive to most people. Like it's not what
this
most
could
people
be
are looking for.
this could be a function of you and I being in our bubbles and vastly overestimating what we see as opposed to what other people see. I think the last like 5 new comedians on SNL were all got big on TikTok first. So like the idea that you can't go like that TikTok doesn't
Oh,
translate
I agree that other people
broader media
can. Like
appeal.
Bella Porch, and like there's a lot of people who do become somewhat mainstream figures off of
Yeah.
TikTok, just not really in politics. It just doesn't really happen. Like there's tons of content creators that I could name, and the people who are considered the big mainstream figures on TikTok that
I don't
you probably have never heard of and that most people
Sure.
in politics have never heard of.
I guess I don't draw the line between political influencers versus broader influencers. I think like one of the most powerful left-wing political figures would be, I don't know, like a Dave Chappelle or a Stavros Halkias, who is kind of like right on the border of politics and not, but like he's more of a comedian, Stavros, than he is a political commentator. I think you'd agree with that.
I don't know who Stavros is.
The big Greek guy, bald, has like anyway, he's like a big popular comedian. He's been on Hassan's podcast, he's been on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he's got some pretty popular specials.
Okay.
Those people are influencing culture
He
and
kind of looks like a
politics
porn
far
star.
more than he looks like Ron. Yeah, he looks like a young
Like Ron Jeremy, yeah.
Ron Jeremy.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. Um, I think he has far more. He certainly has far more political influence than. He probably has more political influence than. Maybe there's no way to measure this, but like you know, like Destiny is someone that a lot of people who are interested in debate and ideas will listen to. I think his core fan base imitates all of his views. I think there's a larger number of people who just like,
He has like
you
a
know, watching
cult
intelligent people
following.
argue. Yeah, I think Stavros. You could make the case that Stavros would be more politically influential, like
Hmm.
an endorsement from Stavros doing political activism for Zohran Mamdani. Not that Destiny would do. I don't know. Does Destiny like Zohran? I don't even know. You know, he might have more influence than like something like a Destiny. So I think the more political the figure in like a media space, I don't know. That's somewhat limiting. I think the big influencers are the main cultural influencers. Which again, just speak. This is just this is how I think, which is why I think about like that. Well, fascism. Probably most people who are politically engaged are using it a little bit more specifically, like non-flexible political corporatism or whatever, which is the definition that Connor from Counterpoints uses, which is like okay, fair. But
Yeah,
the people who are influencing our democracy, which is just like big influencers, will just say this shit's fascist and fuck these people and all that.
maybe. Yeah, I like the guy you're talking about. I don't even know him outside of the
Yeah, that's
fat
fair.
little guy who sits next to Hassan sometimes. That's about it. Um, but the
Also, hate speech. I condemn that, but go ahead.
I don't like the I don't like the downplaying of like the term fascist. And so like I said, I don't care if people call Trump a fascist or call these people fascist, but it is more so that like they fit the term, they fit the definition, they fit the concept, and that the dangerous like idea that comes from that, it to me is very real. It is a very real thing, and
Sure.
that
Well, we could.
people kind of downplaying, well, everybody's a fascist today, kind of makes it to where he can't
Yeah,
be a fascist now because
I
nobody's
see
a
what you're saying.
fascist now.
Yes, there is. It could very easily be the case, and probably is the case, that there are people on who are on the side that are being called a name that have an interest in watering it down, and it's not just the responsibility of the people who are overusing it on the other side. Though I think the more interesting conversation is just how about what are the things? Let's just evaluate instead of saying this is fascist or this is not, because I agree. There's certain things that I agree with fascists on very strongly. Same with communists. There's things I very much. I think wealth
Sure.
inequality is a major problem. I think national identity is a good thing. So I guess, and I'm really over liberalism, Tom. I'm post-liberal now. Liberalism, gay and irrelevant. Okay, we're moving on to something to new. We'll figure it out. We don't know what it is.
Well, you can't be a
So
centrist anymore if you're over liberalism.
I'm a dark centrist.
You're dark centrist.
Dark centrist, yeah. I saw. I'm gonna make it my YouTube banner. I saw a meme where it's like it's the political compass. It's like normal centrism is just you're right in the middle of the political compass,
Mhm.
and then radical true centrism is it's a perfect circle of like you're at a dot
You
at
share
every
half
position on the
radical
extreme.
beliefs from with the left and the
Correct.
right, and you
Yes.
don't share moderate
Yes.
beliefs. Yeah, that's what
Correct.
I was
Yes.
talking
The
this.
only
I was
true
talking
one in
about
the
this. Yeah.
center is Jesus Christ. That's the only true one in the
That's kind
center.
of how I consider
Um,
Tim Pool, is that because he's like he calls himself centrist, but he's also populist. And populist beliefs are fairly on like farther out to the edges. That would make him a radical centrist because he has more radical beliefs. But yeah.
ugh. If Tim Pool's a radical centrist, then I have to. Good riddance to that term. We're on a dark centrism now. Well, let's talk about liberalism and why liberalism failed, and what about that is maybe fascistic. Um,
Well, I think
I mean,
the problem is that so you've probably heard the left say that like uh, cut a liberal and a fascist bleeds, right?
I haven't
They
heard that,
say
yeah.
this
That's one of the
because
examples I would cite as them overusing the term.
sure, but they're not actually saying liberals are fascists. They're saying liberalism always allows fascism to happen because they're so open with, free speech and let everybody talk and let everybody have their ideas, that like the freedoms that they allow fascism to happen. And this is a problem with liberalism. But I would say in the inverse, the problem is liberalism also allows communism and socialism, Marxism to happen as well because they're open with these ideas. And so this is a failure of liberalism to an extent, but it's also like the thing that makes it so great is that like you can evolve and move into different directions and fail and come back to it. But that is my bigger issue with liberalism currently.
That's fair. And they do balance each other out. I was going to make a video called Why Society Needs Sociopathic Political Influencers. And the thumbnail would be like Nick Fuentes, Destiny, Hassan. And my point would be you kind of need these people to balance each other out. Like I think it would be like if only Hassan were around and there was no Nick and there was no Destiny, that would be worse than having all of them around. Would you agree? Like it'd be worse off if if only like left wing, maybe not, I shouldn't say sociopathic, I'm using that extreme. Left wing narcissistic, that's not much better, but less bad than sociopathic. Left wing, if only left wing narcissistic influencers were around, that would be worse than if you had both left and right. It's like a game theory thing. It'd be best if there were none. But since there are going to be some, you'd rather have them balance each other out than just have one dominate.
Yeah, conservatives and progressives exist to keep liberals in check. Yeah.
Conservatives and progressives exist to keep liberals in check.
Mm.
Okay, I like that. But this is let's talk about Tom. Let's talk about why liberalism failed.
Okay.
Which, by the way, I'm going to read. Okay, I'm going to read a review of this book. Why Liberalism Failed offers cogent insights into the loss of meaning and community that many in the West feel. Issues that liberal democracies ignore at their own peril. Barack Obama. So if this makes me fascist for reading this, then Alex Jones was right all along, and Obama is a fascist. But liberalism. The problem with liberalism, Tom, is it puts freedom as the highest value, puts liberty as the highest value. It conceptualizes society as a collection of autonomous individuals rather than a more unified body. And human beings, I would say, in their nature, biologically, are social creatures, we're tribal creatures, we're collective creatures.
That is the fundamental principle of fascism.
Is that wrong? Isn't that objectively the case scientifically?
To an extent, but the idea is that instead of them having agency as individuals to make their own decisions and kind of figure things out for themselves, they need, too many options means that you're just more confused and can't pick anything. And so you need somebody to just tell you what it is that you want.
Hold on. Psychologically, that's like one of the most well replicated. Mm-hmm. It's the paradox of choice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so far you say it's fascist, but you're agreeing with it.
Well, I'm saying that yes, the fundamental like idea of it is true, but that doesn't. So it's kind of the paradox of is it free speech or the paradox of
tolerance?
Tolerance, yes, the paradox of tolerance is still like kind of the same thing. Where like that like tolerating more extreme versions of people is likely going to lead to more extreme politics. But you still allow it, at least legally, you still allow it so that it can exist in some fashion. Because then once you start picking and choosing which ones can't exist, then you'll kind of get rid of all of them. Like the paradoxes exist, but it doesn't mean that that's that we don't strive for something better towards the middle.
Yes, I agree with that. I mean that is the paradox of tolerance.
So just saying that people are better being told
when they say
what's good doesn't mean that we just say, well, let's just have somebody be in charge of everything that we ever do.
I agree. That's why fascism is dumb and bad, because you can never have just one person who knows. That's like fascists by definition, if we're going to discuss it intellectually and philosophically, are almost always against free speech. I don't know if you can have some realistic definition of a fascist that would be pro free speech. So I'm anti-fascism fundamentally on that fundamental level, because I do think free speech is the fundamental correcting mechanism. my concern is more, or my what do you call it? The thing that I
It's the
think they're correct on
tribalism.
is like, yeah, it's wrong to conceptualize individuals as autonomous individuals, that their destiny is like separate from each other. Like, I don't think people have the rights. I don't think people have the right to do the things that are being done right now. Like, I actually don't think people have a right to destroy their own body with drugs. I don't believe that that's a right. I think the original definition of liberty is, I don't think this is what it was. Like the conception of liberty, like the Greeks had, was liberty meant virtue, self-constraint, because that is what allows governance. A man can only be free to self-govern if he is a virtuous person. And that's what allows a democracy to work, is that it depends on, hey, the people who are voting actually know what they're doing. And you have like a virtuous, kind of view of the world. And I think like a society that allows, I think I think OnlyFans is like a perfect kind of archetypal example of this is liberalism. This is liberal logic, the commodification of human intimacy, freedom. People should be free to do whatever they want. Just making society worse for everybody, except a very, very, very small number of men and women who profit off of the, psychic,
How is
weird parasitism
OnlyFans
of people
making
on OnlyFans.
things worse?
I think the existence of OnlyFans contributes to a degeneration of the social fabric. Yes, I think that's in a diffuse way. Impacts like family formation and the belief in monogamy.
You know, something like 80% of OnlyFans subscribers are married.
That's even worse.
Is it? That's if it's stopping people from creating families, but they're already
Well, hold
married.
on. Okay, I would have assumed that you agreed with me. Maybe I'll take the more extreme example. Do you agree that Bonnie Blue is like not great for society? Like,
Who's Bonnie Blue?
that's the girl that had had sex with like 1,000 guys in 24 hours or something and filmed it.
Oh, I mean, I don't know about for society. It's probably not great for her, but I don't think it does anything to society.
You don't think that has like that is like a thing that people? Well, in
Do I
some
think a
extreme
bunch
sense,
of
I suppose
girls are
like
gonna strive to go have sex with 100 guys in a single day? No, I don't think that's
no, but I
gonna.
think it absolutely subtly normalizes sex. It's like, oh, 1,000 guys, that's ridiculous. But like 10 guys in a day, it's like, that's just someone doing what they want to do.
Sure, but
You don't think that? You don't
I'm
think that has
saying
an effect?
no, I don't think it's gonna
That's
have
interesting.
like a big change on people. I think that most people do still have somewhat of like a disgust factor to it. And you could even see that in the majority of the responses to it. Like most people, even who said, like, yeah, like she can do whatever she wants. It's pretty gross. Like it seems disgusting. But like whatever. Like, even the very like the most sex positive people that I knew were like, yeah, that's fucking gross. But like, whatever. She can do what she wants. So yeah, I don't I think that even she thinks it's gross, but she can monetize it, so she's willing to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's immoral. That's like that's my whole point. Like, I'm not making this is like just a straight up moral like position. I'm doing emotivism. I'm saying boo Bonnie Blue. I'm not
But
making a
but
logical
why?
argument per se,
Why is it
because I
boo?
think
Like, just because you think it's gross, then now it's boo?
no. Why? I think because it's well, that's a good question. See, it'd be so much easier if I just admitted I was a Christian.
Well, because that is kind of what
I keep saying I'm Christian adjacent, but
emotivism
it does come
is.
from that.
Yes, that is, well,
Yeah,
real
yeah,
quick, that
and
is
I am
what
an
emotivism
emotivist.
is.
I
It is
think.
kind of saying like,
Yeah.
I don't like that. That's just kind of like it's just an intuitive like, gross or bad
Yes.
or something like that. But it doesn't necessarily lead to like bad. It just does mean I don't like it. And so there's lots of like I don't like chocolate ice cream, but it doesn't mean I'm like I think people shouldn't eat chocolate ice cream. I'm just
Yeah.
not going to eat
Okay.
chocolate ice
Yes.
cream.
Correct. But like this emotivism applies to all morality. So like I assume you think pedophilia is immoral.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that would be that's saying boo pedophilia. That's what that
Right.
means.
Yeah, but I'm saying that
But
there's
then if you
like,
get down to it, it's like, yes, but because it violates consent, it's like, okay, well, why do we care about consent? Like, you're just
well, I
like,
don't think that there
that's
is an
also a bonus.
intuitive factor to. I don't think there is. I don't think that there is like a like an intuitive thing that makes us say, "Ew, sex with kids, gross." Like, I don't think that exists. I think that if you look throughout most of human history, I think that we can see that that has been a thing that was like seen as something very different for most humans, and that once they were capable of breeding, they were considered high value, and so it was it's been very different until we came up with the ideas of consent.
If I was a bigger asshole, I would just start attacking you on this. Brett Weinstein was just on Joe Rogan, and they were talking about this, and I don't actually know how common we have these conceptions of like, oh, the Greeks, they all, and the Romans had like their towel boys or whatever, and so that was normal back then. It's like, I actually don't think it was as normal as, like, I think a lot of people did think it was gross at that time, but like rich powerful people did it as a way to separate
In
themselves
different
from the common
places, we have
morality.
evidence that different kingdoms like developed faster, and that there were points where they thought it was gross and thought it was bad, and that even if a king did get like a 12-year-old daughter given to them, that people did look at it as a negative thing. But the majority of the time, it was more so that fathers were more protective of their 12-year-old daughters and didn't want to give them up, and so that was like a thing that gave it a pretty negative stench. Was yeah, the people like the protection over your own children, but grown men having an issue with somebody having sex with a 12 or 13-year-old girl, they that didn't seem to be as big of an issue.
Okay, well, I guess my broader point is just I think it's immoral for someone to treat their body like dirt. I think that goes against the natural order of things, God's law. To the degree that I believe in God, which I probably do, I think there are moral laws to the universe, and denigrating your own body in that way, I think is immoral,
Hmm,
like prima
okay.
facie.
Um, I mean,
And I
it
think most people believe that, whether they can find the words for it, which is why they have a disgust reaction. Because to your point is, well, you find it disgusting, that doesn't mean it's bad. It's like, it's actually the case that all moral judgments are processed in the parts of our brain that processes disgust. That's why all of our moral language is like,
well, that's why I'm
I was
saying not
grossed out by
all.
that. I wash my hands of this. Yes, but anything that you find to be immoral, you are technically using, I think it's like the insular cortex, I don't know which part of it. The part of your brain that processes like when you see raw meat, or not raw meat, like rotting meat. It's like it's
Mhm.
the same part of our brain. So you can't actually separate disgust from moral judgment because they're processed in the same part of the brain. I agree that just because you feel disgust doesn't mean it's morally bad. But also, anything you find morally bad will be a sense of it's disgust is the operative neurological mechanism there.
But the
So
problem is
so
that a
so
lot of these
point
things are
so it's not
socialized
so
with
easy to
us.
separate those
It's
things.
but it is because a lot of these things again are like socialized, and we do know this because like a lot of the like morals initially were just within one tribe, and that they didn't extend out to other tribes. And so if you had a tribe coming into your territory, you just killed that motherfucker, and there are no second thoughts about it because they don't matter to you. But today we consider the whole world as one big tribe now, and so now our morals apply to everybody equally instead of just our family and our friends and the people that we engage with. And so it is
Yeah, thanks
this is a
to
very different sort of morality, but we still see people suffering in Palestine, and we still have a disgust factor to it, even though that
yeah,
isn't really natural for humans to do.
I agree. Thanks to this is Christianity that did that. We're all made in the image of God. We're all equal before God.
So
We're all
Christianity
take
fucked
part
up.
of the divine essence. Christianity fucked up?
Yeah, it fucked up. It got rid of our emotivism, our natural instinct.
Which natural instinct?
Well, you're saying that all of this is just like a natural thing that exists, and I'm saying, well,
Yeah, God's
obviously
law was
not,
written on the man of every
because
heart.
yes, but I'm saying obviously not, because like tribes did not engage this way, and that they didn't. Everything was very
Oh, sure. Yeah.
insular.
Well, Jesus had to come and spread the message first.
Mm.
Hold on. I need 1.5 minutes here to check something that is time sensitive. So
Okay.
please entertain your chat and my chat momentarily. 1 sec.
What's up, chats? I'm here for you. I just pulled up your chat. I feel like you guys agree, but you can't put it into words. I feel like there's always somebody in chat who says that, who just wishes that that was the case. Christian nationalism is so cringe. I agree. Christian nationalism is so cringe. He's saying the natural order is Christianity. Yeah. He's saying if we are all actually created by God and Jesus is real, then that is part of the natural order.
Yes. Nobody loves Jesus more than I do.
Really?
Yes, really. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, God. So I think we have like just a fundamental moral
Yeah, maybe, because but
difference here.
what is it about? So you're saying that liberalism is failing because you think that there is some sort of natural order that exists that liberalism doesn't acknowledge because they value freedom
Yes.
over that like
Yes.
objective existence.
Yes. One might phrase it as, what's the healthy opposition to the healthy manifestation of fascism? Right? So the healthy manifestation of fascism, to the degree that you can call it that. And I originally just came up with that phrasing on my own, unprompted. Are the critiques of fascism that it has that are valid? Critiques of liberalism that are valid.
But again, I'm
So
asking
what the
if
hell is
that
the
is
opposition
some
to that?
sort of
Who
like
knows?
natural existence. Like I understand you're saying Jesus came, things changed, but that would to me would mean that these are not like natural things for us, and that if even today there's still tribes that exist that have to go out and kill somebody in order to
Well, I
become a
think it was
man.
latent. No. I think it's like epigenetics. It's like it was latent in our psychology. Natural law was written on
Part of
the
evolution.
heart of every man.
I got it, but I'm saying that would have been there like in the beginning as some sort of natural thing, and that if even later people didn't change or tribes didn't change, they didn't take on these beliefs, they were still very tribal and insular and still were killing somebody to become a man. Like what
Yeah, man is
happened to them?
sinful and fallen. Yeah, we're sinful. They're not a good job of.
So we have to be told that this is what good is, not that it just exists within us and that we have this disgust factor, but we have to be told
Correct.
this is good, which means that it is not all just like natural, like within us, but that it is something that is.
We have the innate natural capacity to learn language, but we have to be told what language to use.
Okay.
It's the same. I would say it's the same thing with morality. We have a natural, ideal moral functioning, and we have to be told what that is. And if we don't, we get Bonnie Blue.
Okay. Yeah, I don't believe even like most morals are real. I would say the majority of them are things that we create as rules just so we can get along with each other within a tribe, and that's that. Like we are just making them for our existence to continue around each other.
Sure. Well, even within those parameters, that then things become objective. Like
Well,
that's sort of the
but what
pragmatist
is
view
Bonnie
of
Blue
things.
doing to lessen our existence?
Well, that's fair enough. This is my point. It's sort of like, do you think
Aaron
that
tipped
it's
$2. Ask Jung if he acknowledges that
like, do you think it's
fascism
bad
starts
if a
way before
young man at
genocide and the
age
other
12
salient characteristics associated with it.
discovers porn and watches porn every day?
If it becomes like an addiction, if he's watching it every day, it is likely an addiction, which means that he's prioritizing it over things that he ought to be prioritizing. So then, yes, that would be a negative.
but only because it's an addiction. Not the porn itself is not the bad thing.
Only if he's prioritizing it over things that he ought to be. So, like, yeah, if it has some sort of like detriment to his
Okay.
life.
I guess it's more of an empirical question of like. Okay, here's a question. I think that human intimacy is not something that should be commodified. I think when you normalize the commodification of human intimacy, you cause diffuse harm that's difficult to pin down.
What about like soap operas?
What do you mean? What do you mean? I mean like sexual intimacy.
Well, why only sexual though? Like intimacy is something that like sex is something that comes from intimacy, but the relationship between two people is
Well,
something
there's
that we
you-
have like,
well,
neurons and dopamine and
yeah.
stuff connected to, and that
Well,
also connects to people watching two people in a relationship with their drama and them falling in love and going on picnics and stuff like this. Like these are things that'll put in movies and TV shows and all these things, and that people get off on because they enjoy the like.
yeah. I have friends who have intimate relationships with. I don't have sex with them. I'm talking about sex is a form of intimacy that's in its own categorical thing. And I think there is something sacred about sex. And I actually do think the commodification of it and the treating it casually um, is a mistake. I think, like, for example,
When
like,
you say a
because
mistake, what does that
there's two
mean? Like, what do
perspectives.
you mean it's a mistake?
I think people who treat sex casually end up treating people casually and train themselves to be sociopathic. It's a cultivation of vice argument. Like if you lie in small ways, you train yourself to become a liar, and that's bad.
Mhm.
I think it poisons your mind, right? To deceive others, and I think casual sex can be moral, and sometimes is. I think very often it's not. It usually involves one party kind of not outright lying or outright deceiving, but like it's usually the man feigning more interest in like a relationship just to get the woman to have sex with him, and then he ghosts. I think that's quite common, and I think that that's a cultivation of vice. I think that's good. I think that creates people who are immoral, and that causes problems by definition. If we agree that being immoral is bad.
But if the women are also just as interested in just having sex, then that problem would no longer exist. And part of the reason
I
that women do
Yeah.
feign the interest in relationships is because there is like more of a stigma on women not wanting or just wanting to have casual sex than there is on men. So they do feign, oh, I only care about
You don't
relationships
you don't
when
think there's a
sometimes
you
they
don't
only
think
want to have
there's
sex.
yeah, you don't think there's a fundamental biological difference at play there? You think it's all social
I think
stigma?
there is to an extent as far as how often men want sex, but not whether or not women
Yes.
want sex. Because in my
Well,
experience, I
obviously
grew
not
up a
it's not
Christian
it's
who wanted to like stay celibate, and it was always women who were very fucking pushy all the time. So yeah,
Sure, yeah. Well, yeah, there's a lot of complicated things going on. Shit testing is certainly a thing. But I get like the example, my broader point of like, I don't think we should treat sex like a casual activity where consent is the only thing that matters. And the example that I thought was pretty good is, let's say a landlord is renting an apartment out to a woman and she's broke and she can't make the rent. Should we make it legal for that landlord to accept sex in exchange for housing?
no, but it's because of the
Why not? They're
coercive
both consenting
aspect.
adults, but they're both consenting adults.
Kind of. So the person who is living in the apartment has more to lose
Yeah.
than the landlord. And so if the landlord says, "Hey, I want you to have sex with me instead of giving me money," the person in the apartment has way less of a ability to say no.
Sure. But there's all kinds of scenarios. Even though I can't think of one off the bat, I should probably have a more ready answer to this because that is the obvious response. I'm sure there are scenarios that you and I could think of that where there is an imbalance, but as long as both people consent, it's still like you can sign a bad contract with bad terms.
Like where a
You can
husband and wife say, "Hey, I'll have
or
sex.
just
I'll give you a
ridiculous.
blowjob if you do the dishes today."
No, I'm thinking like super high interest rate on like a loan. Like you can take a loan at such a high interest rate that's like not good for you, but because right now it's set up such that society allows that because it's two consenting adults. Hey, I will loan you this money at this rate, and so long as you are aware, and that person might really need the money because they have gambling debts or some shit, but we still allow that. Do you think that should be allowed?
Yeah, but that's because we do consider sex to be something that has higher consequences because you could have kids
Why?
and then because you could create a wife and that wife is the consequence.
Well, you could use okay, you can use birth control though, and if you use condoms, birth control, and you pull out, you're not going to get pregnant.
Well, sure, and STDs and things like that. I do think that people might end up changing their ideas of this the better the technology gets, but currently that is not the case.
So, but there's something inside you. I would call it God's law that is causing you to go, yeah, there's just something we should not normalize people exchanging sex as a form of legal tender for debts. Because I'm sure there's always an edge case for everything. So like, are there adults where both parties would probably be benefit? Like maybe the landlord and the tenant are like, they like each other, and it's like, okay, actually this could work out, and it's like, and they both end up getting married and have a bunch of kids. Like, okay, that's conceivable that could be the case, but the law and the norms are not meant for the edge case. It's meant for the norm. And I think it's fairly obvious we don't want to normalize that. And you could say, well, Paul, it's just so easy. Just tell white women like you don't have to do that. Like all this is doing is giving you another option because no one's being forced to do it. But once the option becomes open to you, it becomes coercive in a way that's, again, this goes back to the paradox of choice. It's like, well, maybe freedom isn't as free if like, well, if I can only pay with money and I can't pay it, then I have to go find another apartment. But if I can fuck the landlord and get, do it that way, well, suddenly now this option here, and you say, well, it's the responsibility of the individual to handle all moral dilemmas. It's like, maybe society should be oriented in a positively moral direction.
You sound like a communist.
I agree with communists on a lot of things.
I don't like
Dark
communists.
interest, baby.
Yeah.
I absorb all other labels, like dark matter. You get my point? You get roughly where I'm coming from?
I do.
Okay.
But I think that there's always going to be spectrums because those things will always exist. So this is kind of like when you talk to some like
With
stupid
vaccines
lefty
and Tylenol, there will be spectrums.
Yeah, when we talk to any like the stupid lefties on TikTok, a lot of times we talk to them, they'll find any imbalance within a relationship and then say that this is, a power imbalance that, it's like, okay, those will always exist. Like there's no way to get away from power imbalances, but there's some that you get to where it becomes bad. You can't say that just because the guy has bigger muscles than the woman that this is now a power imbalance and therefore they can't be together. Like that's the
right. Yes, I would say the way to resolve that is the thing that we all know to be true deep down, unless we've become truly psychologically damaged, which is that sex is not just some casual activity. There is something that is sacred. Is too strong of a word. It's too religious. But like there is something, and special is too gay of a word. So there's something unique and emotionally and humanistically valuable about that should not be thrown away so easily by using it as legal tender for debts.
Maybe. I think most of it is socialized. And I've had this conversation with a bunch of people who are very like
what? Socialist?
Socialized. That is socialized into us.
Yeah.
So I've had this conversation with a bunch of people who are like, very, very liberal with these sorts of ideas. But then I start saying, okay, so like if I come and slap your ass, why do you get why are you going to get all upset about it? And they're like, oh, because it could come with trauma and things like that. But yeah, but why? Like, why would that come with trauma? It's because like there's this thing built into you that your ass is sexual.
Yeah,
whereas if I touch your shoulder, you're not going to give a fuck. You're not going to call the cops. You're not going to have any trauma attached to it. You're not going to have any like, you're not going to freak out every time somebody comes up behind you. But if I grab your ass, you will, because this is socialized to be sexual, and once it's socialized to be sexual, now it's considered something that is like different.
Yeah, there's signals, that there's social signals that accompany things. I need to turn the fucking autofocus on my camera. It's ridiculous. So yeah, it's an age-old, infinite, endless, impossible question to know what is natural and what is socialized. And even like how much of what has been socialized into us is the result of natural. So like language. Like language is a social phenomenon that we can adapt, but like it doesn't change the fact that we have built-in, natural propensities to learn languages and use language and all that. So who knows? The point is, Tom, is that
But what is the
fascism and communism
what
have
is
some good ideas.
what
and
is
not
yeah
some
yeah
good
but what is the
ideas.
alternative then? Because liberalism acknowledges that it does not, like, the government is not fixing everything, and that culture has to do a lot of these things for us, just the same as like when we talk about the paradox of
Yeah.
tolerance, we're saying that like the government cannot arrest you for these sorts of things, but society ought to like criticize Tucker Carlson for having Nick Fuentes on, right? Like that is where it
Sure.
ought to exist, and that society ought to have these stigmas themselves.
Yeah.
Are okay with today or aren't okay, different skin
that's
colors,
a good point.
or revenge killings,
In the
etc.
book club that we discussed this book, that was sort of that seemed to be the most difficult issue in advancing an understanding of this. Liberalism, most people associate with the political philosophy of liberalism, like democracy, free markets, and all the political things. Liberalism, when I say liberalism failed, and I'm post-liberal, I mean it more like liberal mentality and liberal philosophy of like autonomous individuals and freedom being the highest value. So like you can be, I'm not even necessarily saying the government needs to do anything. Like, for example, like porn. Like I think porn is a drug, effectively. I don't think it's good for anyone. I think the only argument you can make is that my understanding is there seems to be some evidence that when you introduce porn into a community, the rates of sexual assault decrease slightly. So, okay, you can make the case. That's fine. Is it worth like destroying the brains of young 12-year-old boys who are exposed to pornography, like hardcore porn when they're 12?
It doesn't seem to be causal,
Probably not.
by the way. While
What's causal?
there is a correlation there, it doesn't seem to be causal that porn is causing
The
these
introducing
things to
of
go
porn
down in any way. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then there's no good argument for porn. Fuck porn. Then we should just make it legal. But whatever. My point is, I view it like a drug. I don't necessarily think that means we should make it the same with weed. Like, making weed illegal clearly is not great from like all the the cost of making it illegal is different from making it not illegal. But the attitude, like the philosophy of like, well, people should just be free to do it. It's like free from government interference, perhaps, but not free from like shame and social consequence and all that. Like,
Depending on how much they use it, I think that like habitual use, yeah, like it can with all of these things, like all things are, what is the term? Like all things are good in moderation or whatever. Like there's always points that you can get to with anything that where it becomes a bit too much.
true. I would say, never mind. Let's make a bad joke, and I'm against hate speech, so I wouldn't do that.
I love hate speech.
I condemn that legally and officially.
Nobody loves hate speech more than me.
You're taking me out. I don't know. Yeah, I don't have. I'm at the point
because when we're talking about fascism,
I think out loud.
When we're talking about fascism, the problem is that the government is imposing these things. And that is like where the issue comes in.
Yeah,
we don't have an issue with conservatives existing and wanting things to be illegal and not liking things and shit like that. But we do still hold the Constitution as like the highest institution within our government, and that like you can have those beliefs because of the Constitution. But we're not going to stop you from like we are going to stop you from imposing it legally, and that is kind of what is happening currently. Is things that are kind of going against our Constitution are becoming more popular and are even being imposed on people. And so this is where people start to have a bigger issue, is that the thing that has made our country great and made us the greatest nation in the world is starting to be eroded.
Yeah, I think fascism is bad, generally speaking. I just because they make good critiques doesn't mean their solutions are good. And again, if you're anti-free speech, you're just foundationally wrong in sort of an irreconcilable way. So, but the Constitution, would you say the Constitution is sacred?
I would say that it's a utility. It's a tool that has been very successful.
Yeah, I think I view the Constitution the same way atheists view the Bible, which is like there's some good stuff in it, but this idea that it's some sacred thing that if people attack, it's somehow some great crime. It's like, no, there's good ideas in the Constitution. The First Amendment being a particularly good idea, I would say. Probably the best idea in there. But, the Constitution was written by imperfect men 250 years ago. Though some of those same men said it needs to be rewritten every 25 years or whatever, and we haven't done that. So, and some of those men wanted a king.
I mean,
And
we've
some of those
added
men
to it.
disagreed on all kinds of things.
Like that a president can't run for a third term.
Yeah, we've had amendments. Yeah,
Mhm.
but I think Jefferson said it should be rewritten in its entirety every 25 years, not just it should be amended every 25 years. But anyway, my point is the Constitution has some good ideas, has some bad ideas. If someone's like, well, you're against the Constitution, it's like, that alone is not a impugnment on their ideas, because I'm sure you're against the Constitution in some ways. It depends on what specific thing we're talking about.
No, I like
the
the
asylum
Constitution.
process.
Yeah, yep. I like the Constitution top to bottom. And I do think that, yes, as a tool, it has been the most successful
I
tool
think,
in
yeah,
the world
true.
history to create a great
That
country.
is not fine. That I agree. That's not even a matter of opinion. That's just like an objective fact. So that aside, the Supreme Court's the biggest joke of an institution I've ever seen in my life. Appointed, okay, maybe that might have been a little bit hyperbolic. I've seen some dumber institutions, I suppose. The Supreme Court, the idea that that is even good, like how it's set up, is almost ridiculous. That life-appointed judges who arbitrarily die on a whim, whoever happens to be the president at the time, gets to then cement the nature of the Supreme Court for the next 30 years. Demented, deranged, idiotic. Do you agree?
So it's kind of like I think Churchill said that democracy is the worst system except for
all other
all of
forms.
the others. Yes, it is just kind
Right.
of like I can't think of a better way to do it. This seems stupid,
Yeah,
but there's
fair
nothing
enough.
better.
So if someone, well, there's nothing better that's been fried. That doesn't mean there aren't improvements that can be made upon it. So if someone says that I don't really care that much about the Constitution, or someone says, okay, well, first of all, it depends on what they're meaning. But like, when someone says this person doesn't respect the Constitution, it doesn't mean anything to me because I don't respect the Constitution in specific narrow ways. Whereas I would, die for the parts of the Constitution that I agree
Okay,
with, like
fine.
the free speech part.
You do like the free speech part. Donald Trump does not seem to give
Yeah.
a fuck about the free speech part, and that is
Oh,
one of the
I'm well aware of
bigger
that,
issue.
so
Yes, it is one of the bigger
agree.
issues. And so when we're
agree.
like again, the term, I don't care if people like use the term fascist. It is that I don't like people downplaying the term fascist when other people are like, yes, I've done a lot of research, or I'm a college professor, and I think that he fits the label, and blah blah blah. And then it's everybody's a fascist, so like it doesn't really mean anything anymore. Like that's
That's fair. Well, I think there's a lot of fucking libertarians in Trump's administration, which is not fascistic. So, then it becomes a question of what are the more important elements of fascism. So, if someone's anti-free speech but very hyper-libertarian on economics, which do you put more emphasis on in whether or not someone's a fascism? Someone's a fascist.
I mean, again, so I have a little trouble with like the following or the people around him versus him, because the way that it's more about like the way that he ends up doing things, because fascism isn't like, it's not an ideology, right? It's not like communism or Marxism. Like it is just a tool that they use to get things done. And so like authoritarianism, it's just a way of getting things done. Or
Sure.
ultranationalism, just a way of like gathering people and getting them very tribal behind your movement. Or populism, just a way
Actually, I don't know
of
about that,
using
actually.
rhetoric. Like these are, well, I'm saying within fascism, that's how fascism uses these things, is they just use these things as tools to gather people in certain ways, to get things done in certain ways, to achieve goals in certain ways.
Sure. But yeah, okay. I don't think I disagree with that.
And so I'm saying that, like,
It sounds
somebody
we agree
like
on
Stephen
almost
Miller,
everything, Tom.
Stephen Miller, that motherfucker, like, is very fascistic, like, pretty much across the board. He does not give a fuck, like, what the law says, what the Constitution says, what the Supreme Court says, what the judges say. Like, he just wants to get shit done.
Yeah. I don't know as much about Stephen Miller as I could otherwise. What's the most verifiably true thing that is the worst thing about Stephen Miller that I should know?
He had a family member recently come out and say that they grew up as Jews learning about the Nazis and how horrible they were, and that he has become the people that they were raised to hate.
Okay, what is the worst thing he's done in his political power? Because saying his family members don't like him.
Well, not that they don't like him.
Compelling.
Not that they don't like him.
They really don't like him.
He is.
Well, maybe that family member is a fucking loser. I don't know. But what is Stephen Miller? He's fascistic. What has he done, said, or advocated for as a policy that is very, very bad that I should know? Because I know people don't like him, and I'm pretty sure I don't like him, but I don't know why.
I can't think of anything.
Oh my
immediately.
God.
Like
looks like we all just run off vibes, as I suspected.
No. The problem is that this is what happens with a lot of people, is that like if you ask me, like, Joe Rogan, why don't you like Joe Rogan? I would have a million like experiences that I've had where I remember being like, that's fucking stupid. But yes, like I would have to go back through it, like not on the spot, but I would have to go back through it and get it all. Yeah.
Welcome to my life, okay? Because I will debate people.
It's not vibes. I will
debate these people. Well, but it is no. That's my whole central point. Is over the course of your experience, you see these little instances. Like for example, if you, like, what's one thing that you don't like from the?
Okay, so like he was advocating for locking people up for hate speech.
1,000 things.
After what happened to Charlie Kirk, he was talking about locking people up for hate speech.
Okay, but hold on. I just want to make this point. Though on the vibes thing. That's you get all this stuff, and then it influences how you think consciously. But you can't necessarily go and extract these specific memories and put words to it. Hence, vibes are orienting you, which is okay. No. Sometimes vibes can be. Well, whether you like it or not, that is how it works. You're
No, I like his vibes. He's got a white, bald head. It's great.
See, it's funny because no amount of logic or vibes can cause something. Well, how would I say this? If someone just says like, "Oh, I like his vibe," when it's obviously not true, it doesn't work. People have this idea that like, "Oh, well, the problem with vibes is you can just say this thing."
So nobody could like Stephen Miller's vibes. He is like the most stiff, nerdy fucking.
Kind of. Well, but it's like a comedian. It's like, well, comedians run on vibes like that. That's like sort of by definition, like delivery and all that. That's all vibes. If someone's so like whether or not someone is funny, like that's just a vibe. It's like yes, like virtually by definition. So then I could just say, "Oh, I think this comedian is really funny." So yeah, you could say that, but if they're not actually funny, everyone would know you're a liar, or at least
sure. But the problem with like this is
there's a reality to the information that is encoded in vibes.
All of us who engage in politics, and especially as content creators, we all know that like charisma and like being likable, being funny, these things are all very important to what it is that we do and what it is that politicians do. But when we talk about politics, we understand that like the low information voter is just running off of vibes, and that if they see Mom Donnie smile, they're just going to go vote for him. Whereas we are trying to like, use a higher level of intellect to kind of educate and talk to people about these things. And that if we only operated off of vibes, then we wouldn't be like actually helping anybody in any sort of way.
My biggest failure, even though it's not my fault, but my biggest failure is ever once even giving the impression that we should only operate on vibes. My point is vibes and logic must be balanced into account. That's my broader point. Anyway,
we generally call it optics, and that everybody knows that optics matter. Like everybody is very aware. Optics are important.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
You can
Anyway.
be Ron Jeremy and run on the same platform as Mom Donnie, and you're not going to win.
Interesting. I would say Ron Jeremy's got some powerful aura. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, what do we disagree? So it sounds like we agree on everything. You are truly a dark centrist in waiting. I appreciate that.
Okay, yeah.
Is there any other final things we agree? You got a thing at, what is it, 8 in 30 minutes?
9 modern day debates, 30 minutes. Yeah,
All right, well, what else should we talk about?
Well, okay, I guess if we're I did watch a video of you talking to a bunch of people about I watched your video first, and then I watched you have the conversation with Joel about whether
Big Joel.
Yes, Big Joel, not the other little Joel. Don't want to mix them up.
Joel, yeah.
Yes. About we need Nick Fuentes. Have you moved off this position, or do you still feel like he is the savior to stop the Israel order?
Okay, the vibe that you just gave me with your retelling of how, that we
I didn't say Jews. I was trying.
Is your position we need Nick Fuentes and he's the savior of the right? I don't think that's at all in any way.
I'm almost positive you said those exact words at one point, but go ahead.
That's a meme. You're joking, obviously. At no point did I ever use the word savior. There's only one savior, and his name is Jesus Christ. Okay, and he's gonna have a few fucking words for Nick Fuentes before.
All right.
He just throws him into the lake of fire, most likely. What's the question? What's my opinion on Nick Fuentes? Basically.
Yes, you did. You did say that like he is our best chance at like kind of getting people to turn against Israel and not be on their side anymore with all of this like boomer logic.
I think I said what is objectively true, which is Nick Fuentes is one of the biggest influences on the conservative side of the spectrum, moving them away from a pro-Israel position, which is just objectively true. And if you are not super pro-Israel, and I would describe myself as not super pro-Israel, then that is something that is a good that comes out of Nick Fuentes, which is just that's objectively true.
Sure, but the idea was that
think of all the other garbage bullshit that comes out of him. I go, yes, and my whole point was that both things exist. It's not just one or the other.
But that is what that's what exists with everybody. Like I can talk about the fact that like Hitler pet dogs and was really nice to them and said, "Oh, you're such a good girl. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Oh my goodness!"
Right.
And that he loved animals, and then he had family members and shit like that. But it is a cost-benefit analysis, and that like the cost of this person's 100%. Personality being normalized.
So the cost of Nick Fuentes, right? So what is the cost of Nick Fuentes exactly? Anti-Semitism,
racism.
Okay. That's
Christian nationalism.
What is the cost of America writing blank checks to Israel?
Well, I don't know that there is much of a difference whether we write them or not. I don't think we should be a part of it, but I don't think that we're. I think we stop writing checks to them.
I think if America, I think if you had an administration filled top to bottom with people who are explicitly, I don't take money from AIPAC. I don't think Israel is our ally the way they're behaving, and we need to decouple our relationship with Israel. I think America could wildly influence what's going on in Israel in a way that we're not doing now because we're just completely deferent to Israel.
Okay.
And so if Nick Fuentes so I agree, it's at 100% cost benefit. If Nick Fuentes is increasing anti-Semitism, which sure I can agree with. I'd like to see what the evidence is. This is what they said about the campus protests. It's increasing anti-Semitism. Students don't feel safe on campus, so that's why we need to deport people. It's like, okay, I don't doubt that a lot of dumbass leftists increased anti-Semitism on campus. I wouldn't put it past them. There's many resentful, hateful morons on the left who protest at campuses. That's not an excuse to then deport people for criticizing Israel. So if Nick Fuentes is being anti-Semitic and fostering anti-Semitism, which I would agree with. 100% he does. Does that then allow us to ignore the objectively positive political impact he has had in terms of reducing the U.S.'s the conservative, blind adherence to Israel? I'd say yes, that's good. And I'm not even saying it's worth it in the end. Like maybe we're going to end up in the fucking next, first American Reich or whatever, and and we're all fucked. It's like, okay, fine. I've said that. I say that my whole point was Nick has good and bad to him, and the bad could very easily win out. But to pretend that there's nothing, no credit that can be given to anything about him at all, is just demented.
I don't think anybody says that though. I don't think anybody says that about anybody. Like
that's how the debate felt with Big Joel, but maybe that might have just been me.
Yeah, no, I don't. I felt very differently in the way that he was articulating it, but it was.
I asked Big Joel what his solution was, and he said, "I don't know." I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't help anyone. So if you have an alternative,
the problem is that a lot of people talk about the Israel issue as though they're like the majority of people have become that the majority of people are now against Israel and more pro-Palestine, and that is just nowhere close to the case. That the way that we hear it said all the time is there is a growing sentiment of anti-Israel, not wanting to send money anymore, not wanting them to be an ally, not being okay with what it is they're doing to Palestine. That's, if you go look at all the polling across the board, by far the majority of people are still more so on the side with Israel. By far the majority of the people, yes.
That's 100. No.
Yes.
No. Hold on.
Even in Gen Z.
Hold on. Majority. No, that's completely wrong.
Yes.
Hold on. Let's fact check, because that is an important fact that we need to understand. Support for Israel polls by generation. Let's look at a recent one. Support for Israel continues. So this is Brookings Institute. Support for Israel continues to deteriorate, especially among Democrats and young people. Here we go. Most Americans have adopted unfavorable views of Israel since 2022. Percentage of surveyed U.S. adults who expressed negative views towards Israel. In 2025, it is 53% of all U.S. adults. 18 to 49, it's 50% of Republican. 18 to 49, it's 70% of Dems. This is from a Pew Research Center survey of U.S. adults, March 24th to 30th, 2025. So, where are you getting that number? Or where do you think that is from? What do you?
So
the I'll send you the link.
Right? Yeah, the Pew Research polling showing that their if you ask them who they would rather win the war, it's going to be Israel. If you ask them who they prefer or who they like more, it's Israel. Israel versus Palestine. If you ask which side is worse, Palestine. Israel government versus Hamas. They say Hamas is worse. And so it's
okay. That's okay. Hold on. That's a binary. This is just, are you pro or anti-Israel? Not are you pro? Who do you like more, Hamas or Israel?
Yeah, they put these things on spectrums with 5 answers, and the sides that are closer, like you said, to
one of these says, though sympathy for Israelis is down across the board, they are still preferred over Palestinians by Republicans, but not by Democrats. But the point is, 70% of 18 to 49 Democrats and 50% of 18 to 49 Republicans have a negative.
I'm sorry, to me, that's just what the question is. Like, if you ask me, hey, do you love Ukraine? Well, no, there's a lot of problems in Ukraine. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of issues. And okay, so you want Russia to win? Well, no, I want Ukraine to be able to win and have their territories.
Yeah, sure. Okay. But in terms of should the U.S. should the U.S.
Well, so I'm saying that so I'm saying that the sentiment overall is that yes, I'm still going to be technically in this case pro Ukraine because I want them to win. I want them to be like, victorious in this
Sure.
matter.
Okay. I get what you're
But
saying.
I don't like
My-
Ukraine in a lot of senses.
Sure. My point is, to the degree that more and more people have a generally unfavorable view of Israel, I'm not saying they prefer Palestine over Israel, but generally unfavorable of the U.S. relationship to Israel, a big chunk of that movement is squarely Nick Fuentes' responsibility.
It's because people are moving away from Christianity.
People are moving
They're not
away
supporting
from
God's chosen people.
No, God's chosen people are Christians. The church is Israel. There's a fucking heresy called dispensationalism that separate issue. My point is, I just don't care that much about online anti-Semitism compared to the U.S. writing blank checks to what I believe is a genocidal regime.
Okay.
And I got called an anti-Semite for that. Now, to be fair, I also did say several times you can be a Holocaust denier and not hate Jews, which is a pretty hot take. And one that doesn't.
The problem is that hate doesn't matter all that much. Like when we talk about anti-Semitism, a lot of people just boil it down to like hate. And that's not when we talk about racism, when we talk about like homophobia, transphobia, like anti-Semitism, all of these things are mostly, we're talking about like some sort of unfair discrimination. That's about it. Like, even if you hate a group, you can hate people justifiably sometimes, but if you hate them unfairly, that's when we call it like one of these isms or, phobias or whatever. And so that's when it would be unfairly discriminatory. And so it's all just kind of comes down to some sort of unfair discrimination. But people like Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, like a lot of they will always use this like, oh, but I don't hate them. I don't hate them. People think I hate them. Like, no, it has nothing to do with fucking hate. It's not that.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Well, it would have been
cartoonish.
more fun to debate you, but so we agree. Nick Fuentes does have some. Well, what are your opinions on the U.S.-Israel relationship?
I don't.
If you could press a button to stop sending aid to Israel tomorrow, would you do it?
I don't know if I would stop all aid, but I do think that like we've sent too much, and I think we've been too helpful. Even with like Iran, I think that Iran was like going a little bit too far with what it was that they were building. I think Israel had it fucking handled. I don't think they needed us. I don't think they needed our fucking B-2 bombers. I don't think they needed us to step in at all. And I think it was kind of dumb that Trump did, especially right as they're negotiating a deal. Fucking stupid. I think that was insane. But I think that like some funding is fine. I think that like, when we're talking about funding the dome, that I don't have a problem with that. Everybody getting mad about like funding for the dome, that's fine. It's a defensive measure. It's fine. But when it comes to like the offensive measures and all of the other things, I don't think that we need to fund that. And I think that they have more than enough money themselves. So,
well, I will once again say I condemn anti-Semitism like that and hate speech, and I just need YouTube to know that so I don't get struck for the second time.
What did I say this time?
You said that you don't think the U.S. should give Israel as much aid as we do right now. In fact, you said it with that haircut.
Mm.
And you said it to someone.
I went to a No Kings protest, and a woman came up to me and asked me what I was doing there, and told me I look like a Nazi.
And what did you say?
Heil Hitler.
That's not funny. That is hate speech. Unacceptable. All right. Well, I think Tom. I
think we fixed everything.
You and I are the front lines. I think you and I are the front lines of dark centrism here.
I don't.
Right?
No. I am regular centrist.
Cringe moderate. That's fine. We need you guys to keep the lights on, and you guys
cringe
do
moderate.
Which is okay.
Yes, exactly. Cringe
all right,
moderate.
Anything
liberal.
else?
No, I gotta get ready for this other thing, but next time I will hit you up again when you piss me off, and you can gaslight me out of debating you on it again. So I'll see you soon.
That's fair. Did I gaslight you out of debating this?
No.
I was gonna say. I think I destroy. I should be like a Pisco. You're so cooked, Tom. Tom, I just cooked you, bro. Oh my god, my chat's saying dude, you just got so cooked, bro.
It does do this. It really does.
Yeah, he watches
He's
too
a-
much Destiny.
Do you ever watch him like after he'll go on like Tim Pool? I love Pisco. Love him, best friend in the world. But he like so he'll go on like Tim Pool sometimes and he'll come back and he'll be like, bro, I fucking rocked those people, dude. They got fucking owned. I rocked them. I controlled the entire conversation. Like, yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. There's a good line. You seen Game of Thrones?
Oh yeah. A couple hundred times.
When Joffrey says, I'm watching it for the third time through, I think. Joffrey says, I am the king. And Tywin looks at him and says, any
Anyone
man
who
that must
calls
proclaim-
himself the king is no king.
And any debate bro who says the other side is cooked has certainly not cooked the other side. Anyway.
Fair enough.
All right. Good talking. Yeah, we'll talk again.
All right, love you too.
Let me know. Guys, don't do the Destiny stuff. Don't at the end of a conversation. Okay, I love you. That's the ultimate gaslighting.
I didn't say I love you.
bomb.
You said I love you. I said I love you too.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Extra gaslighting. That's fine. Tom, I respect you as a commentator and a conversant. And I see a great deal of darkness within you. The good darkness.
Yeah, you drive me fucking crazy every time I watch you and I get more and more pissed off. But
excellent. Well, our conversations
I
are
enjoy
remarkably
talking to you.
sane for
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Godspeed, Tom. Peace.
Later, buddy. Yeah, I don't know where to go when somebody's like, okay, well, I'm done with liberalism. I don't know where to go from there. So